Hi there, everyone. Scott and Lars. We have returned yet again for another review and analysis of the Apothecary Diaries, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And if you are going to impersonate one of the most important courtesans in the land, then you better make sure that your moles are in the right place.
Yep. Too true.
And that can go in all different kinds of directions.
Oh man, I was so hoping this episode would go a lot farther than it did. And I was actually surprised it focused so much on Jinshi in this case, but it makes sense. And we'll definitely talk a lot more about later, but it makes sense because we have to catch Jinshi up to where Maomao is in the timeline. And in order for them to get back together properly later, we need to have an idea of what's going on both sides of that line, because they're both main characters. We need to know what's going on both sides to make the full story make sense.
Exactly. And this episode does do the Jinshi's character, I think, a lot of service.
Yes.
Not just in terms of catching him up plot-wise, but also setting up his personal stakes in this scheme, in this overarching plot that's dominated season 2. And not just, I need to get Maomao back because she's the girl I got a crush on. No, very personal things are happening for him in this episode.
Right. Oh man, some serious personal things are happening in this episode. So let's get started. Though we should mention the frogs first.
Yes. You know what will make Jinshi a whole lot happier after this episode? If you can find all the frogs that are hidden in this video and be the first person to comment with the correct number of frogs. So that way, Jinshi's embarrassment and pain doesn't have to go on in vain, but that you can get your very own hand-drawn frog from Camille and join the illustrious Brotherhood of Frogs. So again, remember, be the first person to comment with the correct number of frogs, and you win your very own frog.
Have we let Camille know what she's actually drawing yet, or no? Yeah, we'll worry about that later. Let's get on to the episode.
All right, so this episode is one that has a brilliant balance of intense and slow, anxious pacing, which is great for a character like Jinshi, who now we get to see him be the detective. If only he was wearing a monocle and a little cap and smoking a pipe. In any case, he's continuing on trying to figure out where the heck Maomao has gone, and it's been 10 days. Meanwhile, Lady Gyokyo has gone into labor. The baby hasn't arrived yet, but Loman says Maomao's treatments worked well. The issue of a breech birth is no longer an issue as far as he's concerned. The entire household is in a ruckus trying to make sure that Lady Gyokyo is well taken care of, because this isn't just, we got to wait hand and foot on one of the most important women in the rear palace because she is the most beloved courtesan of the emperor. No, it is that she could die still if we don't do everything in our power to take care of Lady Gyokyo. Just let that simmer for a little bit. That there's still a very real chance that the emperor's favorite consort might die, and Maomao is not there to help. So that's a real blade hanging over everyone. And Jinshi is caught between needing to perform his duty of keeping an eye on Lady Gyokyo, which he leaves in the capable hands of Loman, while the quack doctor does his best to keep the trembling little Maomao kitty in his own hands. And Jinshi needs to focus on what he can do. His spies within the rear palace have been trying to get information about what's going on, like what other things might have happened or contributed to Maomao's disappearance. What happened with the servant Shisui, who apparently never existed as far as the official records are concerned, or how Suide even managed to get in or well, they know now how she escaped, but how on earth did she manage to get in? And Gaoshin provides now, thankfully, more information about how she very likely was able to pass herself off as one of the eunuchs, and by keeping very much to herself, the others are just like, whatever, weird dude, and so treated her as a loner, and therefore wouldn't have any gossip or information to pass on, and very likely. Shisui went to go and speak with Soide when she was supposed to take the water from the well on over to be heated for the baths, which then explains probably a little bit more why Shisui was even in the bathhouse area so often to begin with. It was able to make connections and everything. Like, stuff is all coming together in the background, which is really, really cool. Well, thanks to at least some gossip from the other eunuchs about how the new guy, or in this case gal, would go on out to the northern part of the rear palace and spend some time there in the woods. They go there and they find Shen Lu praying where Suede normally would, which ends up being at the gravestones for a bunch of the women who died in the rear palace, who were taken and deflowered by the previous emperor. And this is where we get the first really crazy showdown of this episode, which is that Jinshi smells alcohol, smells the exact same alcohol that the cleaning alcohol that Maomao had distilled. He recognizes the smell because he's actually had a chance to whiff it in an earlier episode. Go figure, going back. And so he immediately recognizes, you have the same stuff that Maomao had. That was specially made. You know where Maomao is. And he freaks out. He grabs her, and Shenlu just clams up. She's like, oh! And so he then's like, wait a second, I have to be Lord Jinshi. And so he brightens up. He puts on that handsome face, and it makes her freak out. Because the moment that he goes from contorted anger face to smiling and happy, she sees the previous emperor. And it causes her to break down. And she calls him out that he's only pretending to be a eunuch, which leads to another crazy revelation that he's the one who even asked to be in the rear palace. He wasn't sent there to be demeaned by the current emperor or anything weird like that. He actually asked to go back there. There's so much crazy stuff going on, but the reveal of Shenlu being connected to the previous emperor, and then going and having a look at the gravestones and recognizing some of the names and realizing that one of the people buried there was actually one of the other women who had been the one to pass along the ghost stories. And then he's like, wait a second, but this other person was also connected to a scandal way back in the day of this lady from this other family, Tai Ho, which is now married into the Shiso family. He's like, whoa, it's suddenly things start connecting. He's all like, this might be me going out on a limb, and as opposed to Maomao and Loman, who do not act on this kind of stuff until they have more evidence, he goes plowing right on over to Lady Lulan to confront her, where he then notices that's not Lady Lulan. That is an imposter. And he's memorized the faces of all the attending women and how they sound, and he realizes that Lady Lulan isn't there. He puts the entire house under arrest and has everyone interrogated. She has vanished. Lord Shiso has vanished. And around this time, Lacan finds out that Maomao has vanished. And the guy goes berserk and puts a battering ram through the rear palace gates. Wow. What a crazy night. Which Jinshi has to calm things down while everyone's getting interrogated. He's like, they probably actually won't know anything. And the women who have been in the rear clinic, they're doing a great service to the other women. And maybe they weren't in on what Shenlu was doing, but they are also from her generation. The resentment towards the imperial family has been festering. He now realizes, him as Maomao, that the resentment towards the imperial family has been festering in the rear palace. The rear palace, which was supposed to be a gilded cage, is one of the most dangerous places in the palace right now, which is really bad for him as the guy who's supposed to be the overseer of the rear palace, as well as he's a member of the royal family. None of this is any good. And as he's ruminating on what all of this means, and he's trying to complete connecting the dots to figure out what exactly is the scheme here. What is Lord Shiso doing? This is when he is confronted by Lacan's adopted son and a distant relative, therefore, to Maomao, since he has been given the family name of La. So Shinji's like, oh, this is a very important guy, and he lays out for Jinshi and for Basen all of these records over the past few years of how grain prices have been going up and metal prices have been going up, which, even though none of them say it, wink, wink, nod, nod, this means that someone is doing something really big and probably illegal. And he's just like, do you want me to continue digging into these records? Because I can. And Jinshi's like, okay, yes, but you've got a price. What is it? He's like, yes, my price is, please knock down the cost of the repairs for the gate. So, with that being done, Lahan is now on the case to uncover the numbers within the official records that might implicate Lord Shiso or someone else in whatever weird economic scheme they're right now playing. Lord Shiso and Lady Lulan are in the wind, and Jinshi is stuck in the rear palace facing down the consequences of his family's choices, or at least of the previous emperor's choices. And it's pretty ominous as we're left with Maomao hanging out somewhere in a village in the middle of nowhere with a fox mask. Bam, bam, bam. Ominous.
Oh man, we got so much of Jinshi's character this episode. It's fantastic. Like, it's so easy to forget in this show. I mean, and it's called the Apothecary Diaries. We know who the Apothecary is. It's Maomao. But it's so easy to forget that Jinshi, just as much as Maomao, is a main character in this story. And we're not able to get the full, like, scope and scale of everything going on in the story if we just had the view from Maomao's perspective. Because we're getting Jinshi's view, we're getting to find out about so much more. And, like, the actual, like, political intricacies involved, because that's not something Maomao's gonna, like, really pay attention to.
Yeah, this episode is very much necessary to give us information, because Maomao, as much as I like to say, yeah, she's like Sherlock Holmes, she's not Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes, who just happens to somehow know everything and can piece everything together once he gets those final clues that everyone else overlooks. That's not exactly Maomao. Maomao does not have the history with the rear palace that someone like Jinshi has. So we need his perspective. But we also need this because, as you said, like, we learn so much. We get so much for his character. And we learn so much about him. And it's great to see him be competent. Because very often, it is Maomao saving the day, bringing everything together. But in this case, it's Jinshi who needs to step in. And it's good to see him as the capable protagonist that he needs to be for this story to move forward.
Well, and it's good to see him with a bit of fire in his eyes as well, because, like, for a lot of this, he's been, I'm going to say fully detached, but, like, you can tell some of his spirit's not in what's going on. He's just doing a job. But, like, this episode specifically, you see him, like, actually getting angry over, like, what's going on, and, like, getting shocked, and, like, we see so many emotions from him this episode that we don't normally get from Jinshi, and it's great. It's great character progression.
Exactly. And like, what brings out this character progression, this deeper look into Jinshi, it is the residual consequences, the lasting consequences, actually, probably a better way to put it, of the previous emperor's lifestyle and choices, and what his mother, the old Empress Dowager, did. It had severe consequences that, what I like about what the show does is that it cannot be taken away. Even if the best resolution is had in this story, it does not take away the girls who died in the rear palace, who had everything stolen from them, from the lives that transformed, and how that led people like Shenlu to go out for revenge and lead to the deaths of so many unborn or newly born children. Like, it is devastating. And Jinshi has learned this, and he's now got to come to terms with it, while at the same time trying to protect the Emperor's family, protect himself, save Maomao, figure out what the heck is going on, and so this brings out how he can be cool under fire, but also, he said, fire in his eyes. He's being very proactive. He's being intelligent. He's working with other people. This shows his resourcefulness and his leadership capabilities. He's not just a pretty face, but he is a force to be reckoned with in his own way.
But then, like, we've got the whole dichotomy happening here. Like, he is a force to be reckoned with in his own way, but why is he shirking, like, trying to get away from the spotlight by running into the rear palace and pretending to be a eunuch? Like, what implications are there?
Yeah, I was telling you this before we began recording. I was shocked. I did not expect to learn in almost a blink and you miss it moment that he was the one who chose to go into the rear palace. That was absolutely shocking to me. So, like, yeah, what is he running from? And it's interesting because this recontextualizes what we've seen of him with the current Empress Dowager and with the Emperor. Because because the Emperor is kind of just like, hey, you know what, you kind of want to move along, maybe get married, it's time for you to step up. And then the Empress Dowager, well, maybe not pushing him to get married, is all like, hey, you can't hide forever. And those who are important to you, you need to keep close. And the way you do that is by taking steps that you're not comfortable with right now.
Right.
So,
oh man, there's so much going on this episode. So much going on this episode.
And one of the things I said earlier about, like, the balancing between, like, that tense anxiety and the fast pacing, I love how you have that ebb and flow of speed. So it starts off a little bit fast because Lady Gyokyo is now in labor, and Jinshi really can't do anything to help out there. So, okay, go back to what is Gaoshin doing? What kinds of information does he have? And so things slow down. Then when they meet Shen Lu, it speeds up suddenly very fast the moment that he smells the distilled alcohol. And so then we have the interrogation. Things fall apart. He's about to rush into Lady Luland, and then he forces himself to slow down, thereby slowing down the pacing. And then we get another explosive moment, and then it slows down again, speeds up with Lacan, slows down again, and I like the way that works. The speed has purpose behind it. It's not just we got to cover stuff in the runtime right now, so just speed run through all this information. Info dump. That's not what's happening.
Well, and, like, I love how even the scenes that aren't in info dump, that are just really quick flashes, can mean so much. I mean, we don't know all of the details yet, but, like, after he talks to Shenlun, he's off to go to Molant's palace. He's got this whole thought process going on about Taiho and a baby and, like, everything that's going on in that situation. And, like, you get the briefest flashes of, like, Shisho, and you get to see the backsides of, like, Suide and Shisui there for just, like, half a second even. And so, like, it's pointing to some interesting things. And, like, from reading the light novel and knowing what's going to happen later, it is a wonderful foreshadow of what's going to happen. Because, like, I missed that when I was reading the light novel, and it blindsided me when I found out something later. And this is, like, the barest of hints. It doesn't give anything away of what's actually going on, but it's enough that, like, you can look back on it and, like, it was there, like, there was a connection there.
And that's the way that good foreshadowing is done. Like, foreshadowing is indeed like a wink and a nod at the audience, being like, this is important. But at the same time, like, you can lean into it way too much. Like Deadpool, like leaning and saying, well, in the script right here it says, or that's going to be important in scene number whatever. Which that's played up for fun, but for something like this, which is way more serious and is not being meta, you can't be that forceful with your foreshadowing. You sprinkle those important details. They are like, if people catch it, then they might know what's going to happen. If they don't, they'll be surprised, but they won't get lost.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
and I think it's important we like look at how it's done in this scenario, because I feel like that's what makes it such great foreshadowing, is because we're seeing it through a character's thoughts. We're seeing it through Jinshi's thoughts. This is what he's thinking and trying to puzzle through at this time. And because it's the character's thoughts, we can't know exactly for sure if it's true or false, like what is completely there. And it kind of like calls back to what like Maomao does, where she's like trying to figure something out and then she like backs away from the situation. And so it's like, yeah, we're not going to get the full story because Maomao's not going to chase after it. We're getting something kind of similar in this case with Jinshi. But like, when you're writing like that, it's important to make everything, it's part of that like show don't tell. We're being shown the character's thoughts. We're not being told what's going to happen later. We're being shown the character's thought process and what's going on there, and it just so happens it foreshadows something later.
And another thing that I like about this episode in terms of how it's written, and this also, like, me saying this is a testament to how far I've come as a writer and as a fan of storytelling, is that it's better to have characters rely on each other to figure things out rather than one person doing it all, being the absolute Übermensch and solving all the problems, fixing everything, being the absolute Chad that wins all the battles. What's great about this is that Maomao definitely needs Jinshi. Jinshi has to rely on so many other people as well to make things happen in this episode. He's got to rely on Loman. He's got to rely on Gaoshin. He's relying on Lahan to help get things done. But what he can do, he does. And that's important, to have a proactive protagonist who is doing everything within their power, and where they are deficient, because you can't, I mean, you can write a Mary Sue, but if you do write a Mary Sue, you can't have an amazing story like the Apothecary Diaries, because all of the amazing plot twists, the turns, the intrigue, the character development goes out the window when a character gets whatever he or she wants with a snap of their fingers. So you then need to write a flawed and limited capacity kind of character like Jinshi, which then requires that he works with more people.
Exactly. Oh man, this, even though it didn't go where I was hoping it would, because I keep saying, oh, it's gonna be next episode. It's gonna be next episode. Y'all are gonna be like so blindsided by something that's going on. It just doesn't. It keeps not happening, and I'm like, I'm worried that it's not gonna happen next episode either. But we'll see. Like, all I can say is we'll see. I hope that we'll get a big like truth bomb dropped on us, but we'll see. Those of you who have read ahead in either the manga or the light novel, do not ruin it in the comments for anybody else. We want them to get this for themselves.
Yeah, please do not ruin this, because like I am so thoroughly enjoying not knowing and just speculating on the side with what I can, and because now members of my family are also watching this show and like having their own thoughts and theories. It's just like, it's fun to have those moments. So like, don't take it away from me.
Yep. Oh, but like, just talking with Lars earlier, he's seriously on to some things. But like, I love seeing Lars theorize about stuff, because he'll pull up stuff that's like out of left field that doesn't end up making a difference, or he'll like get super close to stuff, but like he doesn't know yet. So he's just theorizing, and just watching him like try and figure it out. Like that's what makes this such a fun mystery show.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
it's also what makes this such a great show to go back to, because there's so many small details that you're gonna miss the first time through.
Yes. This is a show that does get better with each watch.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've watched the whole thing. I've watched every episode now, except for this most recent one, at least twice, and it's fun.
Well, and I'm experienced the same thing going from the light novel to the anime, and it's been really good. Like I'm seeing stuff that I didn't see before, and I'm really appreciating it.
So with all of that being said, we now turn over to you guys. We want to hear your thoughts, your critique, your commentary, your insights, and your theories in the comments below. And again, please do remember that if you want to get your very own hand-illustrated frog from Camille herself, that you have to be the first one to comment with the correct number of frogs, and it shall be done. You shall be a winner. And if you'd like to support everything else that we do here on this channel, then please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so, and check out the books that we have published. Links for them are in the description below. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible adventure that we call writing. And until the next time, y'all, again, if you are going to infiltrate a palace and pretend to be the Emperor's consort, please make sure that you've checked all of your moles, and that your makeup is properly applied. Otherwise, it might be your head on the chopping block. So until then, tschüss.
Bikini.